If you're watching this video, it means you're interested in the executive furnished rental strategy. We love this for our clients because it's one of the few ways to make cash flow in the Lower Mainland. We're going to go upstairs, we're going to chat with our strategic investment partner, Wendy of Livin Local, and ask her the most commonly asked questions about this strategy. Let's go check out the unit and chat with Wendy.
So Wendy, tell us more about yourself and how you started Livin Local.
Well, I started, been in the space for about 20 years inside of corporate rentals, specifically furnished executive rental. Livin Local was founded with myself and my co-partner, Michael Stern, and we opened our doors in June of 2019, 6 months before a pandemic. That really was made things pretty interesting. I've been in the space, like I said, for 20 years. I currently sit as managing director for corporate housing for Canada, and I'm very involved with the Corporate Housing Providers Association. Livin Local specifically was designed, having been in the space for 14 some odd years in a different picture show. It became apparent to me that there were some missing pieces inside of what the clients were looking for now. When we look at who was our client, who was our customer 14 years ago, that's changed dramatically. When you look at the nomadic lifestyle of the employees today, which is, your Amazons, your Microsofts, your Googles, your Metas, or the production and film industry that is, blossomed here in Vancouver and throughout the Lower Mainland, there was a definite missing piece, a missing link, if you would, between a traditional hotel or even an extended stay hotel with your galley kitchen, a bed in the living room, a TV. So it's sort of more like a place you would sleep as opposed to a place you would live. So Livin Local was designed as a business to business versus a business to consumer. And what I mean by that is we're not the company necessarily that you would find on the internet and say, oh, hi, I want to get a one-bedroom apartment. And that's how we find our clientele or how we put the head in the bed. It's more inside of very specific relationships with our clients that they are expecting a huge service offering that sits on top of that furnished product, because it's not just a head in a bed or a table and chairs. There is this huge service offering that we do on top of that, including maid service, 24-hour concierge, all these different things. So you really are getting a hybrid between a very luxury hotel and a condominium furnished apartment.
So what's the difference between what you do from a standard property manager?
It's very different. So in Livin Local speak, we would say a property manager acts more like a dating service. So in other words, they go out, they find you a tenant, and ideally that marriage is made in heaven and things work out really, really great. In terms of Livin Local and what we do, in our relationship, we become the tenant. So that allows us to do some different things, unlike a property manager. The main point being is that we can be 100% responsible for care, content, and conduct of our occupants. And I use the term occupant versus tenant, but for the most part, Livin Local is the tenant. And then what happens is we use a license to occupy, so that those residents and occupants are not tenants. And if they do something that we don't like, for example, they bring in a pet or they smoke in the unit or whatever myriad of other things that could happen, we can remove them in a way that you cannot under residential tenancy. So it to a great extent, it mitigates the risk for an owner. It also allows us to be a lot more accountable. So there is more skin in the game, if you will, from a Livin Local perspective. A tenant typically with a property management model, they're going to have a half month's deposit. And if somebody came in with a suitcase with, faulty wheels and scrapes, your beautiful laminate floors, you got a half month's deposit. It's really not going to get you anywhere. We work with corporate guarantees. And again, going back to the fact that we work on a business to business model versus a business to consumer model, if the person who's staying in one of our units was to do something that we were less than pleased with, they were loud, had parties, smoking on the balcony, doing all the things that people try and do, we're really not dealing with that person living in the unit. I'm calling their production coordinator, I'm calling their insurance adjuster, or their boss. And so we're able to protect the asset in a way that a property manager simply can't. Then you're going to augment that with the services that we provide. So it is mandatory for our occupants and our residents and our guests to receive housekeeping service. Those housekeepers that are coming to the units in Livin Local work exclusively for Livin Local. So we have 100% control over what's happening. So, and that's not to say that somebody's doing something bad, but perhaps they're doing something as simple as leaving an open food source out. And you get those unwanted six-legged little visitors. If you're not paying rent, you can't stay. So what I would say is it just allows us to make sure that there is no damage that occurs, that we are constantly upkeeping the apartment, so there's never any surprise.
Here at Mogul, we call it executive furnished rentals or medium-term rentals. They're not short-term, they're not long-term. Tell us a bit more about the product type and why it exists.
So what I would say is that the average length of stay, so I'm going to go to average length of stay because we don't refer to length of stay as medium term. There is a definition for short term, and then there is rental as defined by the city of Vancouver, which is anything less than 30 consecutive nights would be considered short term. That's your Airbnb, your VRBOs, your that sort of platform or portal business, as we call it. Our average length of stay is about 90 nights, but that's not to say that we don't have people that stay with us for a year or 2 years. That too is possible. There's always been a need for temp housing. And I think that, when we look at things like insurance claims, for example, so, you've been displaced from your home because of a flood or a fire, you have 2 kids and a dog, where do you go? Vancouver's a huge tech hub. We also do a tremendous amount of film here. So doing both of those things, you've got people that are coming in anywhere from 2 months to 6 months to 8 months, depending if it's a feature film or not. And they're looking to have a space, a place to live, a place that they can relax, a place that they can have friends and entertain and have some sense of normalcy. So on the film and production side, what we do is we give them a space to be. Then you look at what's emerged now between the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Googles, all of these nomadic companies that have all of these global workers that come in, and they might do a 3-month stint here, or they might do a 5-month stint there, or a 30-day stay over there. They're looking to capture and attract talent. What does talent want? There's a lot of different things that people are looking for. And again, because they're not packing up all their belongings necessarily and moving, from Australia to Vancouver, or from Seattle, with Amazon or Microsoft, and coming up here, they're up here for 6 months. There's a need for that. So they live and they reside in the spaces. This is not as if they're vacation rentals where they're coming in and you're staying at someone else's space. Our ecosystem is that we want you to have that sense of belonging. We want you to live like a local.
So Wendy, what kind of properties do you typically look for in terms of bedroom size, location, and what tends to perform the best?
So we live predominantly in a condominiumized environment. So that's what Vancouver has. That's what the Lower Mainland has for most of its accommodation requirements. We do have a smattering of detached homes, and we also welcome townhouses and duplexes and that sort of thing. As far as location, downtown Vancouver is obviously a home run. We look mostly at where population density is occurring. We're very particular, and it comes down more to the building. If you are in downtown Vancouver, we're not really looking at stuff like a studio or a bachelor suite, because we found historically in a softer market, those are harder to occupy. As we get outside of the downtown core, we look at larger markets, prefer a 2 over a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom over a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. And what we find is as we get farther out from the downtown core, it tends to be families, people living collegially. It might be, 2 showrunners for production living together. So people are looking at space. When it comes to detached homes, when it comes to townhouses and duplexes, they all perform differently. I couldn't tell you which one performs better. I think it really comes down to if you're spending $3 million on a house, there's a different expectation on revenue and occupancy than would be with a cookie cutter, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom downtown Vancouver. We prefer to have larger outside of the core so that we can be a little bit more flexible. It's really about the inventory itself, meaning that in the downtown core, we can take as many units as we get our hands on, and it's really not, that's not difficult to fill. But when you start getting out in the outer markets, when you're looking at Burnaby, New Westminster, Langley, and what have you, we're going to take less inventory in those markets because everything is about occupancy. It's not about having more units to rent. It's making sure you have someone to fill those properties. So we have to have outdoor space. That's not always been the case, but that's what people are asking for now. And as things get warmer and we have global warming, we need to have an ability to have fresh air. So that's come out of the pandemic. We need to be able to put a dedicated workspace. Sometimes you have an enclosable office, but otherwise we have to have that dedicated workspace. You have to have a full kitchen. We're not a real galley kitchen. People are eating, they're living, they are, a proper full-size fridge, different things like that. And moving forward, we are fairly insistent on things like central air, or at least at very minimum, portable ACs. Must have parking, our guys drive. Ideally, it has, the EV charging or access to EV charging. When it comes to furnishing, we're super particular because not all furnishings are equal. And what we're looking for is we're not interested in the IKEA model where we have different size bums and chairs, we have different size heads and beds. So the quality of the mattress is super, super important. We're, mindful, we want it to be tastefully decorated. What we're looking for is sturdy, well-built furnishings, because that way we also protect the owner from having to remodel or refinish or that sort of thing. We're constantly maintaining the unit, we're constantly in the unit, cleaning it. So there's different things like that that will prolong a lot more longevity in terms of your furniture package. High-speed internet. These are like our communications package is top notch. Nobody can beat us. We got 1 gig, speed, unlimited download and upload. These are the kinds of things that our clients are looking for. They're looking for the smart TVs, the types of towels and linens that you use. Was it feel clean? Do I feel nice? These are all the different sort of things that we're looking for. Secure buildings, obviously, is another key point.
How do we know whether or not a particular product is going to fit the corporate rental strategy?
A lot of it is preparation, and you guys know your stuff. The pace in which we can source a unit, complete on a unit, and I just think there's that trust relationship, which is why we offer your clients get 5 extra points on the contract.
We've done a lot of the legwork already, and we ensure that there's a Form J, so it does allow for this type of strategy, so 30 days or more. We also look into the minutes and all of the condo docs too.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we do that's a little different than other agents is we generally show our clients 1 or 2 properties before they move forward with this, simply because we know exactly the product that you're looking for, Wendy. We've already reviewed that it can be a 30-day minimum rental. We know exactly which features of the unit you want. We know the facings, we know the buildings. It's basically just having a look at the unit and giving a thumbs up and moving forward.
Working with you guys makes it really easy because you just cut time, effort, resources. It's all, and especially in a market like Vancouver, because we're not going in there showing somebody something. They're going in there to make a decision. That's why we look to work with you guys, because I know that you've done your homework. I know that we're going, what we're going to see is it already meets the criteria for your client. What's really interesting is that how prepared you guys are. So you're coming in, you're asking the question, what are we looking for now? And you're not looking for just right now. You're looking at that because your lens is different. My lens is going to be, this is going to work for my company. This is going to work for our inventory. My clients are going to look at those kinds of things. But the lenses that you wear is completely different. I mean, you're into the it's a long-term perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And we're even thinking about resale value. We're thinking
Yeah.
about what's going to be best for the client and the investor in the long run, not just for right now.
Yeah, so I always have the lens conversation with my client that what Wendy wants is her lens. Our lens has to be the fact that at some point in the future you need to resell this unit. So we're going to look at it from does it work with the live in local strategy, but how is it going to be on the resale market at some time in the future?
What I like best about this synergy of this is that we're both working for to protect that owner, that purchaser, that landlord. So it's really a long-term partnership. Either that they've already made an offer and it's subject to a walkthrough, which certainly helps us out in terms of manpower, time, and so on and so forth. But I would say that the way that you guys present that information, you're not trying to upsell them on a unit. So they're going to buy something that they can afford, that you're very clear and you articulate exactly what their expectations should be. That ramp up period to get it equipped and put a head in the bed is so much shorter than is typical.
I recall one recently where you had somebody in the bed within 7 days.
Yeah, I think we've rented a couple. I think we rented a couple before we got out of the elevator.
Even on a couple of the deals that we've done, my clients haven't even been here.
Yeah.
So because of our communication and because their trust in me and the Mogul team, we've been able to, have that turnkey armchair investment without the client even being here.
Well, and I really like the idea that once we get the one, then they're already buying the second one. We haven't even had a 30-day stay in the first one.
So Wendy, a question we get a lot is why wouldn't somebody just buy it, furnish it, and run it themselves?
If you are renting to a consumer, so that's really the difference in the model. The model is ours is a business to business transaction versus business to consumer. So in other words, the person whose head is in the bed is paying in that type of a scenario, whether that be through an Airbnb, a VRBO, or you rent it through, like I said, Zumper, Kijiji, Craigslist type of a deal. Ours is not that. We have the clients. So we are placing those, for the most part, we are placing people into units. Because at 11 o'clock tonight, I can get a call from an insurance claim, and we're gonna go and we run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we will place that person. It's not just who we're renting to, it's how we rent. So if we get a call from a global partner, then we're satisfying a production company, they're not necessarily looking for this specific unit. They're going to say, live in local, we require 5 one-bedroom units from this date to that date. And because all of our units, while they're curated differently and they may have different couches and they may have different artwork, they're all of a certain standard. So because we have that standard, we're able to take that person that's coming in and place them. And it also helps us with things like vacancy. So, if I have somebody that's coming in on the 11th of the month and there's a unit that went vacant on the 9th, that's a perfect marriage. It's not really about that our one bedrooms are so vastly different. It's really about we have enough that we can play Tetris, I guess, with occupancy to make sure that we minimize that vacancy. Whereas in furnished rental in particular, typically an owner, and we see this with Airbnb all the time, that somebody will book a weekend, but that precludes you from, you're sitting 5 days vacant. So really you might make great money on the weekend, but you have to amortize that over 7 days. Did you make money? Plus you have to reset that suite.
Tell us more about what the owner is responsible for financially versus live in local, and what does the Rev Share look like?
The owner is responsible for everything that they would normally be responsible for if it was furnished or unfurnished. That being your strata fees, your taxes, your mortgage payments, and so on and so forth. Inside of a furnished arrangement, it is the owner pays for the furniture. So they own the furniture. We have the ability with our design team to outfit an apartment. Obviously we buy a lot of furniture, so they pay what we would pay, but we do charge a management fee, project management fee for that. And for that, typically that's a 5-day turnaround from when you give us the keys to we have the ability to put a head in the bed. So it condenses the period of time versus an owner who will take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to outfit. So there's that. Owners pay for insurance for this type of rental, which I think is important. So it's not a traditional rental. So you're going to be looking for underwriter that understands the needs of that business, especially as it comes to things like loss of revenue, meaning that the guy above us left the bathtub running, your apartment fills with water, I've got to pick my guy up and move him somewhere, right? Our guest. We want to make sure that they're compensated at the same level that they would be for the furnished rental versus an unfurnished rental. The other thing that they pay for is hydro. They pay a shock communication package. So we have a bulk package which saves them more money than they would normally have to spend on their own. So in our environment with you, we work on a 70-30 split. So your clients get an additional 5 points, because traditionally it's a 65-35 split. And so inside of that, they also pay a part of, we share the cost of what's called a reset or a turn clean. So although that we're in the apartments bi-weekly with cleaning services from our housekeeping teams, that's them coming in, they're freshening up, they're sanitizing everything, they're taking out the linens, they're putting fresh bedding in. That is really a great amenity, but the purpose really of that is to be like Big Brother, right? We're eyes and ears in the suite at all times. So in that way, we can be responsible for that. And as I mentioned earlier, we carry an insurance policy because we are the tenant. And so obviously that's at our cost. The in-suite cleans, while a resident is staying in the property, we pay 100% of that. So we do share the turn clean. So when somebody moves out and another guest moves in, that would be a cost. In some buildings, they charge move-in, move-out fees. That would be, again, that would be an owner cost, all of which are you can write off against the revenue produced by the unit.
So we always get asked, what if somebody causes damage in the property? What happens then?
So it's really simple. What happens if damage occurs in a unit? And for us, damage is accidental. I mean, we don't have parties. We don't have 5 people staying in a 1-bedroom. We're very particular. It's 100% our responsibility. That's not only just damage to the unit, but that's also the hallways, the common areas, the parking stalls. So if someone's vehicle is leaking, God forbid their Tesla is leaking oil. Do they have oil? Then we would be responsible for not only cleaning that up. We're also responsible for things like bylaw fines. So people that didn't stop and fob, as they're entering or exiting a parkade, causing a safety concern at the building, that would be something that we would be financially responsible for.
A question that I get asked often by investor is if they want to use it for themselves, if they want to take it off of the corporate model, or if they want to sell it. What then?
Typically, when an owner enters into an agreement with us, it's for a year, and then it just it goes on and on and on in perpetuity. Basically, the owner breaks up with us. We're not looking to break up with them because they're going to give us what we want, where we want it, and how we want it. So, but we want to ensure that the owner has complete control of their space, because that's part of the issue, certainly with residential tenancy here in the Lower Mainland. You really sign your rights away as soon as you get a tenant. We're saying that you can have your property back at any time. We ask for 90 days notice. So that would be whether you're selling it, whether Aunt Sally's coming to visit, whether or not you want to use it for yourself, whatever you want to do, with 90 days notice, under the provision that if we do come to you and say, Mr. Owner, we have a 8-month rental, I have a production company that wants to come in, they need it for 8 months, and you agree to that 8 months, then there is a caveat there that says you can't give me 90 days notice when I've just promised it to a client. So, getting back to your second question, when can an owner have it? Well, owner can have it anytime they want. It's theirs, provided that they book it ahead of time, and it's not it's subject to availability. Just give us a call. If you go to sell it, we do ask that, it's another thing working with you guys. It makes it really easy because that we serve 2 masters, the owner who at that point is looking to sell it, but also the client who's occupying it. And so again, it provides a far greater level of comfort working with Mogul, because you guys get both sides of that equation. So we're not going to have open houses. We don't, every second, 2 or 3 times a week. We're not going to have, 4 to 6 hours on Saturday showings. I mean, again, with the same efficiency that you went in to finding us that unit, I find that the exit strategy is equally as efficient.
And how are the clients notified about the bookings?
And I get that a lot too. Like, how do I know if my unit is full? How do I know if my unit is vacant? We have a pretty flexible policy in terms of communication with our owners. If it's a quick question, like, am I occupied, am I not? We can give them that. We also have our statements that go out. So I think part of how we communicate with an owner is going to be inside of how do they get paid? When do they get paid? How do I know what happened? So our relationship is based on consumption. So typically what will happen is if you are, for the month of September, on or before the 15th of October, you're going to get a statement. It's going to say you had 28 nights in October, or you were full in October, or whatever that magic number is. It's going to say, here's what your hydro was, here's what your shop communication package, your internet, telephone, cable, that kind of thing. Here's what those costs are. We had your fridge went on the fritz, so we had to fix something. All of that is really clearly outlined for an owner. Keeping in mind any of those additional costs would be a conversation that would be had with the owner. You're not going to be surprised on your statement. And then what happens on the last business day of the month, you're paid for the preceding. And the biggest part of it is our owners. They're the biggest stakeholders that we have. Without them, there is no clients. So, and again, working with you guys, the great thing is that we don't have to go into these long conversations because it is a learning curve. It's a big process, right? And it's a big expense. I mean, this is not something people go into lightly. You know, there's a big upfront cost with furnishing and outfitting them and that. But what we do find, and as you guys are all proof of that, is that once they get one, then they're getting another one, then they're getting another one, then they're getting another one. Because once they see how it works and they understand why we are so specific and why you guys are like, no, you can't have that one, it has to look like this and smell like that. That's what makes it easy. So the bulk of our owners are multi-unit owners. Like it's, you know, or the other part is they then tell two friends who tell two friends who tell two friends. And that's how it manifests. I mean, everything we do is by referral, same as your business.
So what happens next? You're going to reach out to one of the Mogul realtors and determine what kind of budget and product suits your needs best. As well, we're going to run the numbers. So we're going to do a property analysis for you to make sure that it fits exactly what you're looking for. We're going to narrow it down to maybe a couple properties. We're going to have Wendy on site. That way we can ensure that it's going to fit this model, and then you get to choose which one you want.